Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wist. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. To start, The Room is considered at least one of the worst films ever made. I'd go so far as to say the worst, personally. So which begs the question, why did you agree to do this film after reading the script?
I didn't agree to do this film after reading the script.
Okay.
I'd known Tommy for 4 years before he wrote the script for The Room, and really I was just going to help him make the film.
Yeah.
And when reading the script, I laughed and thought it was incredible for different reasons. But I knew that Tommy making a film, all the characters were going to talk like Tommy. Especially in the script. So I agreed to help him make the film, and the night before filming was going to get started, he said to me, "If you don't play the role of Mark, it'll be the biggest mistake you've ever made." And something about that ride back to my apartment, he convinced me to do it. And it was just something I didn't expect anybody was going to see. But ultimately, Tommy was right.
Yeah. So why do you think The Room endures as this cult classic while being so bad?
I think it's a film unlike any other, and I think it's a testament to making something original, even if it's completely insane. Tommy put his whole heart into the film, and you can tell with every frame. I mean, it's bad movies in general. It's easy to, for the special effects to be bad because it costs a lot of money to make a good film. So that's not easy. Usually, you're trying to cut costs. But The Room is different because it's just people walking in and out of doors. It's like, how hard is it to mess that up? But what's different is we were all on Tommy's planet, really. Like, when he made that movie, we were existing in this kind of different dimension that he had created, and he put his heart and soul into the movie, and that's what shines through. And for a film to show almost 15 years in the cinemas after it's been released is really an incredible accomplishment, and I think it's a testament to just how insane his vision was.
So, no offense, but The Room isn't the only distasteful film you worked on. I wanted to get your thoughts on working on the film Retro Puppet Master, because I never hear you talk about that one.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about being a young actor. And I spoke with Dave Franco when we were first kind of talking about this movie, and this part is like you get to LA and you try to get into these projects, and then you get one and you think it's going to be just the greatest thing ever. And for me, that movie was Retro Puppet Master. It was the first film I officially booked through an agent. They were flying me to Romania to film it. I was playing the young puppet master with a French accent, had my own castle, and I thought, hey, this could be my warm-up to play Anakin. That's how kind of out of touch we are when we're first starting to be actors. You think it's going to be this incredible movie, and I did have an amazing experience shooting Retro Puppet Master. I thought it could be something special, like most actors feel their first film is, and it's just something that I just think it's just kind of out there. And so by the time I did The Room, I was a little jaded in the sense of realizing it's really hard to be in something that's good and people see. So Retro Puppet Master was just one of those things, one of your first films. I can watch that more than I can watch The Room, barely. But it's just, one of those things you got to go through as a young actor.
Okay, so one thing about The Room that I believe makes it work as this cult classic is that Tommy tried so hard. And in Samurai Cop 2, Deadly Vengeance, Tommy seems to kind of be embracing the dumb thing. And I was just wondering, what was it in Tommy's mind to make him think that The Room would be known as a serious and important piece of film?
I totally agree with you. The only reason The Room works is because Tommy is really giving his all. And that's when I think Tommy is most interesting, when he believes he's Marlon Brando. And he's a first-rate dramatic actor. I think he really comes alive. He's fascinating to watch. And I'm not a fan of kind of trying to push Tommy to be the Tommy that we want him to be. I don't think that ever really has been interesting. And I think The Room works as a cult classic because Tommy is a larger-than-life character who we don't really fully understand. He's a big mystery. because of the way he's performing. Because he has this exterior, but he's really trying to get across a different message, so it's fascinating, and it's very funny naturally, but I don't think it's funny when he's, people try to push him to be this cartoony version of Tommy.
Yeah. So Tommy and you have a special relationship with Ottawa. The Mayfair Theatre plays The Room every month, and you're in town now promoting all the latest things going on with you and Tommy, but this time it's a little different. Do the constant screenings, Ottawa screenings of The Room, mean Ottawa has a special place in your heart?
It really does. It's the 100-month anniversary that it's shown The Room here. I'm very close friends with Lee DeMarb, who runs the Mayfair Theater. We're both lovers of cinema. He's been showing this thing before it was cool.
Yeah.
And I love the Mayfair. And really a special treat, actually, to the Mayfair in 2011 was one of the first tours we did, very first tour we did in Canada, Tommy and I. And in The Disaster Artist, at the very end of the movie, they show Tommy and I in real life, and they have me on stage at the Mayfair.
Oh.
There's a clip of me getting on stage at the Mayfair Theater at the end of The Disaster Artist movie.
Wow.
So I think that's a great touch. And it's just ironic that, the Disaster Artist is coming on the 100th month, and the Mayfair is featured in the film.
That's a coincidence, yeah.
And, it's just a great, it's always a great time to come here.
So you've got a new film with Tommy, Best Friends, but the R has the brackets around it. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about this project.
Yeah, I didn't think after making The Room I'd ever work with Tommy again.
Fair enough.
In any way. I just think that was just an overwhelming experience. You kind of got out of there with most of your sanity intact, and it was a good time to kind of move on. And that's what I planned to do. I was working on some TV show ideas and kind of branching out, and then I got to see a rough cut of The Disaster Artist about a year and a half ago, and I was just so moved and inspired by James's portrayal of Tommy and just the way I was able to see it, outside of my experience, and the way it ended. I felt like, became very clear to me that Tommy has never been taken seriously. He's never been given a chance to really be an actor, which is all he's ever wanted. And with The Room, I kind of was just like getting through it. I never gave it my all. And I thought there was one more chapter left for us. I felt like if I left it with The Room, that I may regret it someday, that we didn't try to actually do something that we both were proud of. So I kind of put the TV show idea aside and sat down and tried to write a new movie for Tommy and I. It was based on a road trip we took and a few other true events. And I sat down, and within 4 days I had the whole story mapped out. It came together faster than anything I've ever done, and I just saw it so clearly. And I loved the story, and I thought if Tommy would only do this part, it would finally be a role that would fit him. And I just didn't, it was kind of a fantasy. I didn't think he would actually agree to do it. And it was so random. Like the next day he texted me out of the blue saying, maybe you should take a risk and try to make something. I was like, God, this dude is just like in my head. And so I ended up pitching it to him. We put a team together, and it's a miracle this film got made. Took the last year to film it, and working with Tommy this time around was a very, very different experience. He was still obviously late every day, and I had to run through hoops to get him there. But he really is tremendous in the film, and I'm really happy that we gave it another shot, and I'm really proud of the way he committed and gave it his all. And I think the film turned out really well, and it's going to surprise a lot of people. We've shown it. Tested it in London, and people really responded to it, and we showed it at the Mayfair, and people were again, people who love The Room, they appreciated kind of the different feel of this film. And so it comes out later next year in theaters, and it's just kind of a great way to go out with this whole experience.
But we get it in Ottawa, which is very exciting. And I wanted to ask you about the book The Disaster Artist. So you wrote that with Tom Bissell. And I was wondering, what was your writing approach with Tom? How did you guys get that one done?
So Tom, I read an article that Tom had wrote in Harper's Magazine in summer of 2010, and it was just a brilliant piece. It took Tommy in the room very seriously, and it was just very well constructed, and it made me laugh more than any Room article I'd read. And I was like, that's it. You take this whole story seriously. You tell it, with heart, and you tell it with sincerity, and let the story kind of tell itself without trying to make it, culty or pop culture. And so, I reached out to Tom, and we talked about some things that I had an idea to do a book, and he really responded to a lot of the stories, and so we teamed up. The first thing we did is we recorded a lot of my stories on tape, which kind of told the story out, and then I had some time. I wrote out the stories into chapters, kind of in a way, loosely wrote out the whole story, and then we met up again actually in Escanaba, Michigan, where it was negative 14 degrees at this little motel, and we just spent hours doing more recordings of me reading these chapters and him kind of interviewing me through them, and we had the entire story on tape mapped out, and then he kind of did a draft of that the way he saw it, and then we took that and rewrote it together and kind of chopped it up, tightened it, and worked extensively with our editors at Simon & Schuster, who were incredible. One was a fan of The Room. The other one was not too familiar with it, different age brackets, so we were able to really get a story that was appealing to anyone who hadn't seen The Room. And that was my goal with this book to begin with. It was to reach people that weren't into bad movies, weren't into Hollywood, and to have this be turned into its own great film. So basically to take something that was considered the worst movie ever made and make something redeeming out of it. And so that's what Tom and I sat down to do.
Well, I got to read it. Because it sounds like just a good book, and that's what James Franco was saying, that it's not anecdotal, it's just a good product.
Yeah.
And you worked really hard on that.
Yeah, the goal was really to have it be a universal story.
Yeah.
That you could just pick up like a nonfiction novel and get into it without having seen The Room or knowing these characters.
Fair enough. So, The Disaster Artist, the film, was a blast to tip this year. And I think general audiences will let you and Tommy into their hearts if they go out and see it. Seth Rogen, James, and Dave Franco insist they are making fun of Tommy. Do you actually believe that to be the case?
Absolutely.
Really?
They're a great group of guys. Now James had never seen The Room. He read the book first.
Yes.
And he knew when he was reading the book, he said about halfway through that he wanted to make the film, and discussed it with Seth. And Seth was a longtime fan of The Room. Seth went and saw the screenings before the cult started. So he was seeing The Room back in like when the billboard was up, and so he had seen it with I think Jonah Hill actually and a few other comedians, and so he knew all about The Room, which I think was kind of interesting. I think that they genuinely appreciate Tommy a lot like I did when I first met him in the acting class. I think that he just is kind of this lovable character, and if you love films and you love weird shit,
sure,
he's kind of the holy grail. So
this is true. So how did James approach you to buy the rights to the book to make the film? How did that
about 3
happen?
weeks after the book came out, my agent at the time who was representing the book, he had sold like stories like Black Hawk Down and these big features, and here he was. He had never seen The Room, and he read the book and thought it could be something interesting, and so about 3 weeks after the book came out, he got in touch to say that James was interested.
Okay. So James Franco has already been nominated for a Spirit Award for his depiction of Tommy. Do you plan on going to the Spirit Awards and possibly even the Golden Globes and the Oscars if The Disaster Artist gets nominated for these events?
Well, I mean, first off, I think James deserves to be at every awards show this season. I think he deserves to win. I mean, playing Tommy is probably the hardest role that I've seen in at least 20 years. It's just so hard to humanize him, to bring him to life in a way that's not imitating him, and just make him a true, authentic character. And James pulled it off beautifully. I mean, knowing Tommy for 20 years now, watching the movie, his performance just gets better every time. I mean, the things he was able to do, and he really put his whole heart and soul to it. A lot like Tommy did with The Room, but this time The Disaster Artist actually works as a great film.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, to be there and kind of see the acclaim. I mean, yeah, I'd love to go, obviously.
Yeah. So will the irony of one of the appearances of an actor from one of the worst films ever made be lost on Tommy? Will he understand that it's like a big joke, or is he just like misunderstood at this award show?
I think at the end of the day, he created a film that's considered terrible, which, you could spend all day talking about why The Room is not a good film.
Yeah.
But, obviously it's worked. It's found a way to do something that no other film really has outside of Rocky Horror Picture Show. And that had great actors, a studio behind it, and this was completely independent, had no chance of succeeding. And it's kind of broken every barrier in its path. And so I think Tommy should feel really great about that. because he pulled off something that not many filmmakers have done. Regardless if it's good or bad, it's had staying power, and I think that's something that any creator should. Yeah, I think terrible or not, it's become, a staple in cult cinema, and I think that's something to celebrate.
That most definitely, and like Quentin Tarantino says, never hate a movie. So, good or bad, we got to root for every movie.
Definitely,
I think.
definitely.
So, if you want to dodge this question, I totally understand, but this is my last one for you. So I'm sure you feel a bit of both. But what feeling dominates you when you think of Tommy Wiseau? Love or hate?
Love.
Good. That's good. All right. Well, Grace Sestero, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.